Hi, my name is Nick. Welcome to my YouTube video. This video is actually a response to a video by the name of Questions White Men Have for SJWs. I saw it and I thought, hey, I'm an entitled know-it-all white guy. Maybe I could help these guys figure out the answers. So before we can start into this, I should probably explain what a social justice warrior is. A social justice warrior is a derogatory term for someone who essentially doesn't believe in the right causes. It differs somewhat from the term sheeple, because sheeple tends to be used against people who don't believe you and your claims, whereas the term SJW is more someone who embraces a set of ideologies that are different or opposite to someone else. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's just, I guess, jump on into these questions here. Let me just bring them up really quick. I'll probably provide a link somewhere on this video. I'm not sure where, to the actual questions if you want to, see them asked directly from the people who wrote them. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and read them to you. Question number 1. They weren't numbered, but I went ahead and numbered them, so, helping people out. Anyway, let's get into question number 1. Why do you claim to speak for LGBT people, women, and ethnic minorities, but when LGBT people, women, and ethnic minorities disagree with you, you harass them? Now, I can't be positive here personally, but I think I smell some primo quality bullshit here. Not necessarily a problem with the question, so much as a flaw in the logic. I mean, I can't quite place it. I see a little bit of a false dichotomy here being set up. You either speak for these groups or you attack them. There's actually a number of different places you can go there. It's also a bit of a straw man because, I mean, it takes sort of the worst cases that an SJW could embrace and poses them as a fact. This is what they do. And then the last one is just this broad generalization applied from, I don't doubt there are people that do both of these things, but applying it to every single person in this very diverse group of people, it's bullshit. I don't know how else to phrase it. Maybe you could come back with a somewhat more, meaningful question. A lot of these people like to embrace logic as their guide, and it seems to me like they should be, using the rules. But whatever. Let's go on ahead and move to the next one. Do you realize that your war on language through political correctness has made you bedfellows with true rape culture? In other words, Islam, the world's most misogynistic ideology. Almost fucked up my words there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and assume this guy is already proven. He's got a PhD. He's got work published everywhere. Just across the board, he has proven that Islam is in fact the world's most misogynistic ideology. Never mind that there are plenty of equally misogynistic ideologies all across the world. Some of them religious, some of them aren't religious. We're just going to go ahead and assume that he's proved this. I personally think it's bullshit. So, don't take it that I'm embracing this. I think it's bullshit. But for the sake of argument, I'm just going to assume he is right. Here's the problem. His use of the word true rape culture attempts to essentially dismiss the idea of rape culture in the Western world. This is bullshit. I know it's bullshit. He knows it's bullshit. Everyone knows it's fucking bullshit. Rape culture is a thing. Now, there could be varying degrees to it or whatever, but that doesn't change the fact that it actually is a thing. Now, taking this into account, what we have going on here is a fallacy I personally find insidious, by the name of the fallacy of relative privation. This fallacy happens when you attempt to dismiss something else by implying something's worse. I like to call it the first world problems fallacy. Basically, it would be like if your dog went missing and someone decided, that they didn't care for that issue. They thought you were being petty. And so they tried to tell you, they're starving kids in Africa. Now, let's completely disregard the racist aspect of that particular argument. Just, the attempt to sort of smash someone else's problems by implying someone else has it worse, when the two have no connection whatsoever. Obviously, helping those kids in Africa is something we should be looking into doing. And sure, we probably should help them. Regardless, it doesn't have to find your fucking dog. And so, yeah, once again, we're running into fallacious thought in these questions. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. This is a lot of fun. This one has two parts to it. Do you want women to be equal, or do you want women to be a protected class? You can't have both. Well, I'm just going to answer this first half of the question. Yes, you can. I mean, that's literally the definition of a protected class. It's someone who's been discriminated against, so we protect them against discrimination. That is literally, yes, that's what a protected class is. Sorry. As for the second part, if you expect women to be as equal as men, why don't women have to take responsibility for their own safety? Well, this one's really easy to answer. For the same reason you don't. I mean, I assume you are not all of the police of the world and the army and pretty much every security system on the planet. Women shouldn't have to take responsibility for their own security because we as societies take responsibility for each other's fucking security. You are not securing yourself and the people around you by yourself. This is built on by the entire society. So yeah, I don't see why women should have to arm themselves to the teeth, load themselves into tanks just to go to the store at night to feel safe. Fuck that. On to the next one. What are you afraid will happen when you leave your safe space? It's obviously mocking safe spaces. Never mind the countless people suffering from post-traumatic stress, soldiers, rape victims, child molestation victims, people who often blame themselves and often need a place where judgment isn't, applied to them, which is why, colleges provide these things called safe spaces. Well, let's disregard that. Everyone has fucking safe spaces. You have a house. Hopefully you have a house. Even if you don't have a house, you probably have somewhere you feel safe going, where you're not going to be robbed and stabbed. And if you don't, you are really fucking stressed. What am I afraid will happen when I leave my safe space? Well, life will happen. I come to my safe space to escape the stresses of life. On to the next. How can you possibly justify the idea that it's somehow racist to disagree with Black Lives Matter, and yet it's not racist when a black person tweets something like, "Kill all white people"? Okay, the first part, it really depends on what your argument is with Black Lives Matter. It's that simple. What is your argument against Black Lives Matter? Is it that Black lives don't matter? Because that's racist. If it's all lives matter, so as to silence the Black Lives Matter movement, well, yeah, that can be racist too. As for, it's not racist for a person to say, kill all white people. Well, Let's think about that. When people are bullied in school, picked on, especially when it's regular by specific groups or individuals, they'll tend to react by making jokes like, hey, we should get together and kill that guy. Rarely is this taken seriously. Usually it is the result of essentially a group of victims getting together and making light of the situation. I don't think it's necessarily racist if it's just an emotional fucking reaction. Now, it can be in countries where, you know, black people actually are the dominant, the ruling group. But even then, we still have the problem that hatred often came about from things like colonialism, like in Kenya, where we will sometimes see that. White people came into their country. We forced them to grow our coffee and tea. And in return, we expected them to eat shit. I mean, we weren't providing them adequate food. Of course these people came to fucking hate us. We took everything from them and forced them to grow our fucking crops. It was basically the same fucking thing as slavery. If they stopped, well, we would make them keep working. So, yeah, that resentment comes from somewhere. And personally, I'd much rather try to work it out than just tell people to shut the fuck up. But that's just me. This one's fun. It's from a kangaroo. I love kangaroos. Kangaroos are awesome. I think he's got glasses. He may have glasses in a later question. I don't fucking know. But he's a kangaroo, and I love kangaroos. So I'm gonna go ahead and read his question. Here's a question. Are you aware that the present is not the past? I'm not kidding. Are you familiar with the concept of linear time? Because you seem incredibly comfortable traveling back through time by talking about how bad things were for women or black people or whomever, and then by using some form of SJW magic, you then claim or imply that those problems in the past exist today. Are you aware that this trick you're doing is not working? Why do you think that would work? Well, okay. You're a kangaroo. And I mean, you look like a really cool kangaroo. And I love kangaroos, so I'm going to assume you are cool. But cool people don't always necessarily, especially cool kangaroos, don't always necessarily understand the concept of linear time. The present is happening now. We can't really reference it because it's sort of always happening now. The future hasn't happened yet. It's just a concept. It's, you know, we're going to get there. Now, maybe kangaroos see the future. And they can reference the future for, you know, building their arguments. But the rest of us, every other human on the fucking planet, we have to use the past. We have to go to the past to get our arguments, to frame our arguments. So hopefully that explains it for you. I don't know much about kangaroo society, and I don't want to insult you. You seem, once again, really cool. I've never met a talking kangaroo. I didn't even know they could talk. So I'm actually quite delighted to find this out. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Why do you think that you can spend your entire life in a state of perpetual emotional immaturity? Do you actually imagine that you'll be able to stretch out your adolescence for your entire existence? Well, considering that I'm already showing secondary sex characteristics, it's a little late for that question. Let's move on. There are 13% more women in college right now than men. I'm going to assume that fact is true. So if the whole goal of feminism is equality, shouldn't we have some men-only scholarships in order to equal everything up? Well, assuming that fact is a fact, I don't think we necessarily need to. I mean, okay, first of all, we have plenty of male-only scholarships. I mean, you're not going to get a free ride on a football scholarship. Most women aren't going to get a free ride on a football scholarship, but these colleges, especially the big ones, they are all about their fucking football teams. But, I mean, disregarding that, if you look into things like the military, police, professional sports, you have a lot of options for men that don't necessarily involve going into college. Whereas you don't... Yeah, women can go into the army. Women can become police. And the advantages gained by doing these are quite, they're more or less the same. The problem is these things tend to be geared both culturally and physically towards men. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we necessarily need to fix that. If that's a problem, we can certainly look into it, though. If feminism and egalitarianism are both for equal rights, then why does one start with a gendered prefix while the other is entirely gender neutral? Well, first of all, antebellum era America was an egalitarian society. So, I mean, women couldn't vote. There were slaves. Minorities were treated like garbage. They needed a new word. And it just so happened, one that happened to mean equality between both sexes. So they called it feminism. They could call it love taco, we'll say. And, then there wouldn't be a gender in it, and it would mean, the equality between both sexes. But the pure words, egalitarianism and feminism, as they're intended, they mean the same fucking thing. If you don't have a feminist society, you don't have an egalitarian society in the purest sense of the word. So yeah, not sure how that's hard to understand. What do you hope to gain by bringing back racial segregation? I don't. Next question. When my granduncle was dropping bombs on London, did your grandparents get out of their bunkers in the mornings to protest with signs that read, "Not all Nazis"? This is a false equivalence. I'm assuming they're talking about, Muslims. They don't make a specific claim, so it's very vague. But I'm assuming they're talking about, not all Muslims. And the difference between Nazis and Muslims is Nazis are a unified group. They have a structure. They have a hierarchy. Muslims don't. They are many, many groups. They are not all following the same. They fight each other. They argue with each other. Now, if you wanted to say not all Al-Qaeda or not all Hamas, I'd be right there with you, because these are monstrous groups. I agree. But if you're implying just Muslims as a group, well, fuck you. That's not even close to equivalent. Anyway, let's move on. Why do you think every cis white male is born racist? Racism is a learned behavior. Well, I don't, and most people don't. If you're talking about privilege is not the same as racism. Let's move on. How can you possibly say that the phrase "all lives matter" is somehow racist? It sounds like something the Dalai Lama would say. Well, it does. It's context. Context is always important. the way in which you use all lives matter is what matters. And if you're using it to shut up Black Lives Matter, it's racist. If you're just using it to say, hey, all lives matter, there's nothing wrong with that. Let's move on. Would you rather be right or popular? It seems like your primary objective is to score social points and get public validation. You speak publicly in the same way people write their dating profiles. Stop trying to demonstrate how awesome you are and get real. Well, I don't know who told you this about me. I think they're lying. I mean, I don't know where you got this. I don't usually do public speaking, but I'm guessing your information is somewhat off. Regardless, this is what you call an ad hominem. It's an attack on the person. I'm not making an argument. You're just attacking me. For someone who claims to use logic, once again, you should use logic. This is a fallacy. So if a drunk man sleeps with a drunk woman, the woman is incapable of giving consent, but the man is? This sounds perfectly, like reasoned, but it's once again, sort of like the Black Lives Matter. It's context. Is the man incoherent? If the man is incoherent, then it is rape. If the woman is incoherent, then it is rape. It's that simple. Don't rape incoherent people. Moving on. No, let's not move on. Don't rape anyone, ever. But especially, no, not even especially. Also, don't rape incoherent people. Okay, now let's move on. Is it really easier trying to spend your whole life attempting to pacify the world and subdue all around you, instead of accepting that you are the person that needs to change? Why do I need to change? I mean, society has always been changing. And the fact that I want to change it in a specific direction shouldn't be surprising. We've always been changing. Why shouldn't we continue changing? Until there's nothing left to fix. Yeah, I'm going to keep pushing for change. Sorry. When I sing along with rap music, is it okay if I say the word nigga? I'm sorry if I offended anyone with using that word, but I'm reading what they wrote, or what they said. What I wrote to what they said. Anyway, it really depends on who you're with. It's that simple. Technically, you have the right to do it. I mean, you have every right to do it. And nobody has the right to attack you if you do it. Not in America, anyway. You have the freedom of fucking speech. That said, it could get you ostracized. It could get you some pretty hateful looks and glares, and people might throw you out of their establishment if you offended them. If it's among friends or a group of people you feel safe with and know you won't have a problem, then sure. But yeah, I mean, you live in a society, and societies have rules. How you behave may affect how you are treated within that society. How do you reconcile your opinion that gender doesn't matter or even exist with your need to invent new genders every day? Well, this is conflating. Another misuse of logic. This is conflating two different sides. And it's also a great example of privilege, because when it isn't relevant to you, you don't give a fuck. I largely don't mess too much with this, because it is. There are a lot of good arguments on either side, and luckily I don't really have to take a side in this particular argument. That's a great example of my privilege. Moving on. In your version of equality, will white men ever have a voice in society, or will white men always be too privileged to participate in discussions? Well, I'm white. I'm discussing. End of story. Moving on. What makes you think the power of censorship that you are so desperately trying to establish now will at no point be used against you? I'm not trying to establish power of censorship. If you say fucked up shit, if you say things that offend people, they'll respond accordingly. That's their response to freedom of speech. You can't control that. Sorry. I mean, you can cry about it all you want, but people will ostracize you. They will condemn you. They will hate you. In America, anyway, you still have the right to say whatever the fuck you want, but society still has the right to ostracize you. That's just the way it is. Why is it that if a woman dresses sexy or even topless in public, you support it? But if a female game character is dressed sexy, then you want her clothed more modestly. Well, this is all about agency. The female game character is created, well, especially an especially sexy female game character with, like, you know, a chainmail bikini on or something like that, is created to excite men, or possibly women who also like attractive women, and rarely given much depth or thought as a character. That woman who's dressing, who maybe even wears a chainmail bikini out to the beach, well, that's a woman. She wasn't created in a room to please men. She is a woman who chose to go out looking like that, and she has that right, and we should respect it. Regardless, personally, I would much rather have strong characters. I don't have a problem with the female form. A lot of people very much like it. A lot of human beings like the female form. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with displaying it. It's the way in which it's used that I personally take offense to. I would much rather have an in-depth character than a sexy one. Though if you can find a good balance between the two, more power to you. Let's move on. What is your favorite song to sing really loud when you're confronted with a different point of view? I'm going to put it right here. Giving you a minute. Why are you afraid of dissenting opinions? Your continued attempts to silence all opposition, either by smearing them publicly or labeling their content as hate speech and having it removed, only serves to insulate your bubble even more and maintain your echo chamber. It also prevents you from taking on new information and hearing different points of view that are sometimes superior to yours, which tends to happen whenever I talk. Okay, I love hearing the opinions of kangaroos. I think kangaroos are awesome. I will always stop and listen to what a kangaroo has to say. Regardless, you don't have a right. I mean, on people's social media sites, you don't have a right to say whatever you want on someone's individual bubble. You don't have a right to go into someone's fucking house and force them to hear what you have to say. The awesome thing about freedom of speech is you don't have to listen. That said, I generally prefer to at least listen and give people a chance. Anyway, let's go to the next one. We're almost done here. What is reverse racism? Like, what the actual fuck is it? It's just racism, right? I mean, am I going crazy here? Am I taking crazy pills? Well, I'm not here to do your homework. Go ahead and Google it. I'm sure you can find the answer there. Do any of you people actually remember all the pronouns? You know the list, right? The one with 76 fucking genders? I don't necessarily know that list, but once again, that's partly as a result of my privilege, if that particular list even exists. I don't know if you're exaggerating or not, but regardless, when it's relevant to me, when someone wants to be referred to, I don't care if what they want to be referred to as is something that sounds made up to me. It is important to them, and if they're important to me, I will call them what they like. They don't even have to be important to me. It's important to me that I get to live my life, And it's important to me that they get to live their life. And so I will give them the freedom of living their life as they choose. It's not that hard. I don't have to be a dick about it. I can just move on and call them what they like. Why do you feel entitled to control what artists and entertainers are allowed to express? Why do you think your sensibilities should be placed above the sensibilities of actual creators? Well, we're the market. Whether you are commissioning an artist to make something, hiring an artist to produce specific work, unless you're one of the 0.001% of artists, you are making something for someone in some way. For example, video games. Yeah, it's your company. You're putting out your product, but you know, if you want to sell your product, well, you got to entice the market, the people who are going to buy it. If you shit on them, they're not going to buy more. Sorry. So yeah, feedback. It's that simple. Everyone gives fucking feedback on, especially on products they bought. Why should it be any different with art? If someone makes shitty art, someone paid them for it, especially if they paid them ahead of time, which is often happening, especially in video games. Yeah, I think they have a right to fucking complain. Anyway, that's the way the free market works. If you have a problem with it, let's get rid of capitalism. I'm all for that. If you have a decent plan. Obviously, I'm not too big on going socialism, so yeah, we can discuss this. I'll gladly have a discussion with you on this, because I would love to find an alternative to the system we currently use that isn't a jump to socialism. I don't necessarily embrace that one. I struggle with this nightly. So yeah, if you could help me, that would be awesome. Have you ever considered that using the term racism and sexism as haphazardly as you do to describe everything under the sun makes you feel everything under the sun that makes you feel uncomfortable devalues the word to the point that it actually hurts the people who actually suffer from real racism and real sexism? Have you ever thought of that? Well, once again, you're using the term real racism and real sexism. This is an entirely fucking subjective term. You're engaging in the fallacy of relative privation. Once again, this is a fallacy. This is illogical. That's all I can say to that. I mean, you can't really answer this question meaningfully. Not if you're not going to use logic. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Have you guys ever tried drinking this shit? It's great, he says, holding up a bottle of bleach. And obviously, I haven't. But thank you for asking. I appreciate everyone who stuck with me through this. This is about my 18th try, and I actually managed to get it about 30 minutes. So, unfortunately, there were fucking 28 questions, so it's a little hard to get it finished. Anyway, if you liked my video, go ahead and like it, spread it around, whatever. If you don't like it, go ahead and, I've got the comment section open. Go ahead and leave your comment. I may or may not reply. Who knows? If you have anything else, if anyone out there has anything else they'd like me to respond to, go ahead and send it. Can't guarantee I will, but yeah, go ahead and, send it to me. I'd love to respond to more shit. And I guess I'm out.